Watch this vidcast, or I'll gouge your eyes out.
Welcome back, horror hounds, to Ghostman and Rivera's Horror Show podcast.
I am Mike Ghostman Pickle.
And I am James Rivera. We have a lot to talk about today, so we're going to get started with...
Horror Show news.
Helen Lyle will appear in the new Candyman.
Ooh. And Glenn Danzig's Verotica trailer drops.
The VFW trailer drops.
Director Scott Derrickson drops out of the Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness film.
Tom Savini to helm the makeup effects for Corey Taylor of Slipknot, his debut film.
And a 6-part series called True Terror with Robert Englund is coming to the Travel Channel this March.
So to start off, it looks like Helen Lyle, who was played by Virginia Madsen in the original Candyman, was one of the main characters, will be making an appearance in the sequel, according to a scoop from none other than Bloody Disgusting.
The plot thickens.
No confirmation as to whether Virginia Madsen is set to reprise her role. This keeps getting more and more interesting the more I hear about it. I thought this was going to be a complete reboot, then I hear Tony Todd's involved, and then we report that Tony Todd is the Candyman, but Yahya Abdul-Mateen was the Candyman, and then their IMDb pages are not very clear on which character is which. Yeah, Tony Todd is listed as Styx.
Yeah, they each have a name besides Candyman.
So who knows what direction this is going in. If Virginia Madsen is going to be in this, they're probably trying to keep it under wraps because they've been very slow to reveal the details and the nature of what kind of sequel we're going to be getting. They keep referring to it as a spiritual sequel.
Why bring back the Helen Lyle character unless you're going to bring back Virginia Madsen? It seems obvious that they would bring her back.
The only way I could think of where they would not bring her back if they would cast another actress if it took place around the same time as the original Candyman, or if it's a flashback. So we don't know if this is in flashbacks, if it's current, if like at the end of Candyman she became an urban legend on her own. So is she that urban legend still incarnate still?
I must say
I am really interested.
Yeah, this scant information is pretty titillating for me.
Me too.
I'm getting all excited and wondering.
I think they're doing a good job of slowly teasing out information to build up fan anticipation.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to it.
And you know what else I'm looking forward to?
What's that, Michael?
Verotica, Glenn Danzig's new
trailer.
So bad it's good movie.
So we reported on the Verotica film a while ago when it had its debut at the Egyptian Theater, and about the fact that it's been greeted as a new cult classic in all the wrong ways. It's being compared to The Room, Tommy Wiseau's infamous trashterpiece. So apparently this is going to be every bit as popular as The Room for midnight cult screenings.
Yeah.
For that reason alone, I'm excited.
So let's check out this wild Verotica trailer. See what Glenn Danzig has in store for us. Kind of a cool image to open with.
A film that has cult classic written all over it. Another weird image. The best horror movie I've seen in theaters this year. Who's the fuck said that? Okay. The instant movie midnight masterpiece. I don't... A knife.
I don't think they're calling it a masterpiece for the right... for the reasons that they...
Oh man, these are some strange images. Captures the true essence of the European 1970s horror cinema. Destined for cult attraction. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, all these quotes aren't necessarily good things.
Believe the hype. Glenn Danzig Verotica is absolutely exquisite. Ooh, some gore. It looks hokey.
Yeah.
Wow, that's literally a quote. Verotica in a cool Suspiria-esque font.
Some of it looks cool, some of it looks cheap.
I gotta say, the quotes on this trailer are very interesting because a lot of them are calling it a new cult classic, saying things like, wow. I've read a couple of reviews that they're referring to, and they're not positive reviews for this movie. They're calling it a cult classic for all the wrong reason.
Yeah.
But I'll give them credit for finding a way to take quotes out of context and make it sound better than what it actually is.
Yeah. Horror fans have been famously fond of bad movies.
Yes, we love bad movies.
We love them to be gloriously bad, and this one looks gloriously bad. Some of the images actually look pretty cool, but some of it also looks pretty hokey, like it's not even color corrected.
No, it looks very washed out. It looks like this could be every bit as amateur as I heard it was.
Yeah. The only thing that really seemed off in that trailer was that throat slit it seemed like a really bad throat slit on there that looked fake.
It did. It did.
It does have a Room vibe to it, like a horror version of The Room.
On a more positive note, we are going to show another trailer for a film that we are anticipating for completely different reasons.
Oh, yeah.
It is Joe Bago's latest film, VFW. After The Magnificent Bliss, which was released this past year, I'm looking forward to anything this director has in store. And so I'm very excited to be checking out the trailer for VFW now.
We see a bar. We see the signature red and purple lights that Joe Bagos likes to use.
Looks just like Bliss. Fangoria.
You know where you are, kid? On the VFW post. How about we close the bar down early tonight?
Bill Sadler.
Best birthday that Freddie ever
Bill
had.
Sadler. George Wendt again after he used him in Bliss. The old man from Don't Breathe. It's great to see him in another film.
From the director of Almost Human and Bliss.
See, the problem is that me and my old friends are probably going to die tonight unless you help us out.
I like the visuals already and the color scheme that he has going.
Yeah, Fred Williamson. I love this. I love this cast.
This, though, it's all he's got his whole life.
So it's all these old men at the VFW versus all these punks.
Veterans of foreign wars.
Veterans of foreign wars.
And one of the punks is the star of Bliss.
From the producers of Bone Tomahawk and Brawl and Cell Block 99.
Those producers know what directors to go with.
Yes.
Sure.
They look like they're preparing for Spike's war. Oh, Fred Williamson there?
Yeah.
Starting to remind me of From Dusk Till Dawn, like
Yeah.
they're preparing for an onslaught as they hold themselves up in this biker bar.
Oh yeah.
A bloody and violent midnight. Ultra stylish, pure cinema, says Consequence.
I could see that from this director. Oh yeah.
80s exploitation throwback. Ooh, sounds exciting.
Some really hard hits in this trailer. That's somebody's head being slammed up into a door until it opens. Yes, action, horror, blood, weapons.
VFW.
Anybody else want to come in my bar?
Oh yeah. William Sadler with a chainsaw or whatever that was. Ah.
Hell yeah, that looks
badass.
fucking badass.
All those old men are awesome actors.
And it's already been released at some festivals, as we reported on recently in a podcast, and it's been very well received as well. The reviews seem to be very ecstatic, and most of the people on the horror scene seem to really dig it. And I believe it because Bliss was an incredible film.
Yeah, and what a great follow-up to Bliss just a year later. To come up with something so totally different. It looks like it has a similar tone as far as the action and the
cinematography.
Yeah, like the colorful lighting and cinematography and everything. But
The
other
energy.
than that, yeah. But the story and the cast seems nothing like the other one, except for George Wendt. All right, that was a VFW trailer. Now we move on to director Scott Derrickson drops out of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and I could not be happier and I could not be prouder of Scott Derrickson. I knew I shouldn't have believed the studio back when they started harping on, oh, this is going to be horror, this is going to be hardcore R-rated horror, and we're going to give Scott Derrickson complete free reign. He's going to make an awesome MCU horror film.
Yeah,
And then-
coming from Disney.
Yeah, and then just recently they started softening that stance. And I was like, oh shit, all their story is crumbling down now. It's not going to be a horror film. It's going to be some watered down trash. And I'm sure that once Scott Derrickson got that realization, I'm sure that's why he dropped out. He has not actually elaborated on his reasons for leaving the project, but he recently tweeted, "Studio release dates are the enemy of art."
I think that speaks for itself. And to be honest, this sounds like typical of Disney. This has happened on the Solo movie. This has happened with the Ant-Man movie and Edgar Wright. Every time they bring in auteurs or they bring in filmmakers with a unique vision, they want to stamp it out. There's arguments, and eventually they walk away because they won't bend to the homogenized view of how Disney makes movies.
So it's
Mass-produced and mass-marketed.
It's big studios like Disney that are the enemy of art.
Fuck this movie. I'm not really interested in it at all because we know it's going to be some watered down crap. And I'm not really afraid to say that because the first Doctor Strange wasn't really, in my view anyway, wasn't that great of a movie. Aside from some nice psychedelic visuals interspersed throughout. I did enjoy that aspect. But I think Scott Derrickson needs to go on and do something that he wants to do where he has complete creative freedom. Yes. And he's not being overlorded by corporate drones who do not know shit about the art of movie making and don't know shit about movies.
Yeah, give us another film like Sinister or Exorcism of Emily Rose. I was only interested because of Scott Derrickson, and I only got more interested because I heard they were going to give him free reign. But once they took that away from him, I wasn't interested
Disney
anymore.
Doesn't have the balls to take those types of risks with their creators. They're fucking boring. So Tom Savini is going to helm the makeup effects for Corey Taylor's debut film. For those who don't know, Corey Taylor is a member of the popular metal group Slipknot. Little details are known about the film other than it is horror. Taylor did tell Kerrang! Magazine, the infamous rock magazine, "I wrote a script for a horror movie that I'm really stoked about, and I just broke the skin on book 5. So I'm working on that as well. I've got a lot of things going on, but I'm also making sure there's plenty of time for family, my marriage, and home. God knows you never how much your time you're going to get here." Tom Savini's partner in crime, makeup artist Jason Baker, told Daily Dread, "I am thrilled we are able to finally start slowly talking about the fact that Tom and I are going to be involved with Corey Taylor's new horror movie, and that we will be handling the special effects makeups for it. We're not allowed to talk about plot details or titles or anything like that right now, but I will say that the script is totally fucked up." I gotta be honest, I'm pretty neutral on this because I've never gotten into Slipknot. I've never had anything against their music, but it's not something I ever got into. I'm aware of who Corey Taylor is, and I'm aware of their image, but I've never really delved that deeply into him.
Yeah.
He's never made a movie before, so it's hard to know what the movie's going to turn out, if it's going to be good or what it's going to be like. I do like the fact that Tom Savini is working on it. Anytime he's involved with makeup effects, you know you're going to get something top-notch. I just don't really have much to say about this one.
I really hope this script is good.
We don't want him to pull a Fred Durst with The Fanatic.
Yeah. Why would Corey Taylor all of a sudden decide he wants to make a horror film? Like, I can understand that. All right, this metal singer wants to make a horror film. Fine.
I get that.
But why get Tom Savini? Why does he deserve Tom Savini when there's directors like Joe Bagos out there and Ari Aster and Robert Eggers? Why is he not working with directors like that?
Corey Taylor does have a certain level of fame and and we all know that the metal and horror cross over a lot, and a lot of metalheads are horror fans, and horror fans consist of a lot of metalheads. So I guess that makes sense because they appeal to the same sensibilities, and Slipknot definitely has the horror aesthetic with their masks and the way that they dress and the way that they present themselves. And while I would like to see Tom Savini work for more filmmakers like that, I am glad just to see him working. And I have to say, if I was and I am an upstart, trust me too, I'm my own upstart. If Tom Savini said that he wanted to work on my movie, I'd be like, hell yeah, you can work on my movie. I'm not going to say, why didn't you work with Ari Aster?
Yeah.
Why haven't you worked with all these great filmmakers? I'm just going to take it. I'm hoping for the best because, like I said, I'm not really too familiar with Slipknot's music. I have heard things about Corey Taylor being pompous and bombastic, but I'm not really too much in the know on that. So
I used to be a big Slipknot fan, and they kind of declined in quality over the years and got more sappy and got more nu metal sounding. So they used to sound a lot more hardcore. I fully admit I'm kind of being a hater on this, but what the hell, I can be a hater sometimes. Everybody else is.
Well, we'll see. I'm neutral.
Yeah. So, moving on to our final news story. The 6-part series True Terror with Robert Englund is coming to the Travel Channel this March. So, Robert Englund is going to join Zach Bagans on the Travel Channel. So, in each episode, Englund uses his ominous tones and creepy charisma to masterfully weave together a trilogy of spine-tingling true tales, guided by newspaper accounts and layered with commentary from historians and experts that prove the truth is always stranger than fiction. It's supposed to include things like flying creatures, possessions, and hauntings. Robert Englund himself says, "Revealing the sinister side of our history, I'm thrilled to bring nightmares to life on True Terror. These are tales so terrifyingly twisted, we can only hope they stay on the blood-soaked pages of the newspaper headlines from our past." The series begins Wednesday, March 18th at 10 p.m. on the Travel Channel.
Intriguing.
And I'm not really into reality TV, but this is the type of
I'm not-
reality, almost like a docu-series type of thing.
I'm not a reality TV person either, but this sounds like something that's right up my alley, and I'm sure it opens the doors for a lot of fascinating stories and a lot of fascinating information. And who better to narrate that than Robert Englund?
Yeah.
Such a nice, warm, lovable, awesome human being.
Yeah, every episode is going to have 3 stories in it, so it looks like they're putting a lot into it, and they believe in it, obviously, because they're putting Robert Englund at the helm.
You're listening to Ghostman and Rivera's Horror Show Podcast.
So we got some movies that we need to discuss today, but before we get to that, Mike and I need to play another round of Tubi TV Roulette. For those who don't know, and I'm sure most of you do already know, Tubi TV is a free app that you can get through Amazon Prime or Roku or through various other services, and they provide a huge plethora of films to watch for free. Granted, you have to deal with some commercials, some carefully planted commercials in these films, but in comparison to stuff that's on TV, the commercials are pretty scant. They go by pretty quick, and they're not much of a hindrance to the viewing experience the way it is to sit down and watch TV and have 10-minute commercials every 15 minutes. So it's a better experience than that, and the films are uncensored, and it's free, so we can't complain too much. They happen to have a very extensive horror section that Mike and I like to go through randomly, close our eyes, scroll through it and stop until we land on something, and whatever we land on, that is the film that we have to watch and report back on in the podcast.
Yeah, and with services like this or apps like this out there, there's no excuse for you dickheads to be out there downloading movies and stealing from filmmakers. Go to something like Tubi. There's other apps just like it with tons of free content, and watch that shit and stop stealing. Okay, I'm in the horror section. All right, the last one I reviewed that I chose on here was The Burrowers. That was last week. So this week we're going to start fresh, and we're each going to pick a new movie. And then in the coming weeks, which will probably be at least 2 or 3 weeks before we
discuss
these, because
we have some big topics coming up before we get to that.
Yeah, we got the end of the year and the decade stuff coming up. So right after that, we'll be
tackling
reviewing these films. But now let me scroll through. I am scrolling.
And the thing about this, Michael is scrolling right now, and the longer you go down the scrolling list, the worse the movies get.
Yep.
So,
I've spun the Horror Tubi Roulette wheel, and it's going, and I'm going to stop right.
You passed by some good ones. Oh!
Here.
Holy shit!
Midnight Meat Train.
Oh, we
Sweet.
just talked about this on the last podcast. Interesting. It'll give you a chance to reanalyze it, too.
Yeah. Now, James is going to play Horror Tubi Roulette. He's going to go back to the beginning.
Alright, I'm going to go back to the beginning. Let me know when I've landed at the beginning, because I don't want to look at the possibilities.
You didn't memorize where the good movies were, did you?
No. No, I didn't.
Oh, there's Friday the 13th, Paranormal Activity 3 and 4, Clown, which isn't that great, but it's okay. Maggie with Arnold
Alright, here we go.
Alright.
I'm scrolling, and I'm doing this so you could hear the clickety-click on the podcast.
James is now scrolling through. He has turned the Horror Tubi Roulette wheel.
3, 2, 1, now. No One Lives.
No One Lives.
God damn it! I almost said 1, and I could have gotten Thinner from Stephen King.
Yeah.
Motherfucker. Oh well. No One Lives. What is this?
Starring Luke Evans.
Starring Luke Evans, Adelaide Clemens, Lee Turgensen. A vicious, ruthless gang has no idea why they've just kidnapped a person who is determined to turn the tables on them one by one. Wait, what? A vicious gang has no idea. Oh, that they've just kidnapped a person determined to turn the tables on them. I thought it said a vicious gang has no idea why they just kidnapped somebody. I would be like, what?
So this looks and sounds like it might be good, from 2013.
Directed by Ryuhei Kitamura. That name sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah.
That name sounds very familiar. No One Lives from 2013. And if it's bad, at least it's only an hour and 26 minutes. Yeah. It'll be a mercilessly brief film if it's bad, but I'm hoping for the best. So that was another round of Tubi TV Roulette.
So I got Midnight Meat Train, and James got No One Lives.
I almost got thinner, and my instinct was, if you go one more and say now instead of saying one, it's probably going to be worse, and I fucking did it anyway.
I was going to pick again because you just discussed that one, but I didn't discuss it, so you might as well just follow the rules of the game and watch what I land on.
All right, perfect.
But I look forward to it. I do like that movie, and I'll be able to analyze it a little deeper and determine whether the CGI blood
was enough to
killed
ruin it for you.
Yeah.
Horror show exclusive.
All right, now we are going to get to the movies we watched this week, but we're going to start off with you, Michael.
Yeah, I'll start off with a couple of rewatches I did before we get to the movies that we watched for the first time. I rewatched two that I like a lot. One of them is really good. One of them is one of my favorites. I'll start with the first one. It was really good. I'm only going to touch on this briefly because I did talk about this, I don't know how many weeks ago on the podcast, but I did discuss it. It's The Babysitter from 2015, directed by McG. The writer is Brian Duffield. He wrote Insurgent before he did The Babysitter, and Jane Got a Gun with Natalie Portman. And he also just wrote Underwater, which I'm really excited to see.
I've been hearing good things about that.
Yeah, the Kristen Stewart aquatic monster movie. The Babysitter stars, of course, Samara Weaving. She is an awesome new actress to pop up in horror. She popped up with a few really good movies right away, and she just keeps going strong.
I loved her in Ready or Not. I thought
Yes.
she was great in that movie.
She's going to Ready or Not, Mayhem, Ash vs. Evil Dead. She just jumped on the horror scene. So it's Samara Weaving. Judah Lewis plays the little boy, and Bella Thorne's in this one. She's really good and funny in it. And Andrew Batchelor is another standout in this one. The movie's about a young boy who stays up to spy on his babysitter and finds out that she's part of a satanic cult that is using his blood for their rituals. It's really gory, really high energy. It's unpredictable and a lot of fun. It's colorful and polished, really well done gore, really creative camera shots from director McG. He seems to have a signature type of
style.
Energy and style to his movies. Has a really zany energy to it. And of course, the magnetic star, Samara Weaving. I think she actually came to the U.S. from Australia for Ash vs. Evil Dead.
And that's how she started taking off.
Bam, big part in Ash vs. Evil Dead, and then Babysitter. And no, it was actually Babysitter she came here for. And right after she got Babysitter, she got
Ash vs. Evil Dead. I like The Babysitter. I saw this back in 2018, and I had a good time with it. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it, so I can't really comment much. I don't really have much back and forth on that one.
Yeah.
But I do remember having a good time with it, and I particularly remember enjoying Samara Weaving's performance.
One that where Babysitter pales in comparison to is one of my favorite slashers of all time, Severance from 2006, a UK slasher from director Christopher Smith, who also directed Triangle, Creep, not the Creep with Mark Duplass.
Okay.
It's the Creep with what's her name from Run Lola Run.
Famke
Patenka, yeah, she was in Creep, and then he did this really cool movie Detour that really didn't go anywhere, but you can check it out on Netflix. It's really good. And I just watched his movie Get Santa.
Get Santa?
Yeah, like a fun family Christmas action movie, and it is actually really good. I watched it so I'll probably be watching it every year from now on. If you guys listen to the podcast regularly, you know that this is a director that I love. His two movies that I love the most are Severance and Triangle. I love this one a bit more. It's co-written with James Moran, who later on went to write Cockneys vs. Zombies in 2012. And the big standouts in this, in a really good ensemble cast, are Laura Harris from The Faculty, and Danny Dyer, who went on to do this movie Doghouse, was really good, a really good British actor. So it's about a group of sales reps from a weapons company who go on a team building retreat and are hunted down one by one in the woods. It was billed as Hills Have Eyes meets The Office, and I can totally see that. It's funny as hell, it's brutal as hell. It's intense, well-filmed action scenes, intimidating killers who are still a scary threat when they are revealed, a brilliant ensemble cast of British actors along with American Laura Harris in her most intense performance of her career, I think. And Danny Dyer and Laura Harris separately fighting for their lives, then coming together to fight for survival in the third act is one of the most exciting sequences I've personally ever seen in a horror film. And rewatching it just solidified my love for this movie. It's so exciting, it's so funny, it has such a cool energy to it. The characters are cool and believable. Danny Dyer and Laura Harris really shine in this movie, and they would have stolen the entire movie if it hadn't been for the ensemble cast, the great killers, the great kills, and if the comedy wasn't so strong. And for a movie with so much action, comedy, and horror, it still has a layer of emotion, and that's why I absolutely love Severance, and I show it to everyone who comes over my house. Everyone needs to go seek out Severance from 2006, director Christopher Smith.
Listen to this podcast, or I'll gut you.
Mike and I watched the Soska Sisters' latest opus, Rabid, the remake of the David Cronenberg classic. All right, this is going to be a hard one.
I don't even know where to start, dude.
I rented this movie through Amazon Prime. I really wanted to see it.
Yeah.
I spent more than half of the running time trying to convince myself that I hadn't wasted money and that what I was watching was in fact actually good. But then it wore on and I realized that this was just a charade. A charade to make myself feel better about spending money on it. I was on the verge of renting Ready or Not for a rewatch. I should have stuck with that.
Yeah.
God, this was a bad movie.
This does not look like a movie that was done by the directors of American Mary.
There's some stuff that I like about this movie. I think some of the gore effects are pretty cool. I think that there are a couple of very fascinating sights, and I think some of the attacks are pretty interesting. As a horror fan, I like that they went for the practical gore.
Yeah.
And it is effective at times. But the story is so strung along in a way that's really unbelievable. Every character is a caricature.
Yeah.
It's very hokey. It's not, in my view, and I'm not trying to talk shit, and I'm just being honest, it seemed highly unimaginative from a filmmaking perspective.
Almost to ludicrous levels.
Yeah, the cinematography, which I know not everybody cares about, but it's very flat and very basic. There's nothing very much dynamic. It doesn't have very interesting color correction. So as a film from the get-go, it's not a very aesthetically pleasing thing to look at, despite some interesting gory sights in there. Those are results of the makeup. I felt that none of the characters were believable. The lead actress, what was her name?
Laura Vandervoot.
Vandervoot. Laura Vandervoot is Rose. There's actually nothing wrong with her performance. I just don't feel that the movie guided her in the right direction, and I felt under a different film, under different directors, she might have been able to deliver something more. But given with what she was working with, I feel like she did the most what she could do.
Yeah, I think she delivered on what she was told to do. It's the what she was told to do is the problem.
Yes.
And that script is awful.
Man, I don't know what happened here.
It was disjointed. I mean, things happened that didn't make any sense. It was kind of way too
The
convenient.
movie has no internal logic of its own, and if anybody knows me, I have no expectations for film or movies to conform to reality.
Yeah.
However, movies that don't conform to any sort of reality need to commit to its own internal logic, and I'm okay with that. David Lynch is a great example of it. His movies do not represent reality, but they all follow a great internal logic that makes sense, at least on an emotional level.
Yeah.
In a way that is easy to connect with. This movie has no idea what its rules are. It doesn't have any idea of how the plague is spread, because it's spread in various different ways where people become rabid and ravenous. Some people are bit and then they become rabid within an instant. One character takes days for them to turn rabid before it finally kicks in.
Some are deformed, and then
some
they're
are
not deformed
or
anymore.
not. Yeah, and if I feel like the disease becomes whatever is convenient to move the plot forward at that point in the story. So if we need it to be drawn out for the purpose of this character, so we can have a big shocking moment, it's going to be drawn out. If we need that punch in the scene right now, we're going to make them turn rabid in an instant.
Yeah.
If this isn't shocking enough, they have tentacles coming out of them.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
I know.
And it just feels like they had the script is a complete mess. It doesn't make sense. And then who's the guy character? Not the boyfriend, but the one who cares about her, the good-looking guy.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what the fuck was that?
The character's name was Brad Hart, played by Benjamin Hollingsworth.
I'm convinced that they only put him there to be eye candy, because the character has no reason to be there.
Yeah.
His motivation switches throughout the movie, and by the end you're never clear what his motivation was in the first place. It's very murky, the reasons that he's there. He cares for her, he doesn't care for her, he was set up with her, he was paid to go out with her, but he really does like her.
Yeah.
Oh no, the doctor was in on it from the beginning, and he was watching hold because he knew that her body was going to be taken hold by a disease.
Yeah.
And he comes from, it just seems like the same thing with the disease itself. The character becomes whatever they need him to be to move him forward, the story forward at that moment, and none of it was believable at all. And this is another example. The actor was fine in there. There's nothing wrong with the performance. It's just that the character doesn't make any sense on any level. The movie refuses to commit to any form of internal logic.
No.
The Soska Sisters don't even seem like they set up any rules for how this world would be governed. It's really haphazard. A lot of it comes across as hokey. The characters are cliches, they're caricatures. There's not really much to latch onto. There's some impressive visual designs with the makeup, some impressive things to see, but it doesn't really amount to enough. And oh my god, these are the stupidest fucking villains in history, the doctors. Ugh.
They're the biggest characters in there were the villains. The doctor, Dr. William Burroughs, he was just a joke from the beginning.
He was so overly sinister in a way that almost seemed campy right from the get-go. I was like, nobody in real life is ever going to go for this guy, and he's obviously a fucking scam. I have a hard time believing that he gained that much legitimacy.
When they first went to him, he stood on the other side of a one-way mirror staring at her with a creepy smile on his face. When you first meet him, he becomes a dumb caricature.
There's no nuance, nothing like that in this film. This film lacks any kind of nuance, any kind of viewpoint. I'm not sure what the movie's trying to say. I think it's trying to say something about beauty standards.
Yeah.
I think there's some kind of critique in there, but I don't think they figured out what exactly it was.
Well, I don't mind the changes that they made to the original. I don't mind all the liberties that they took.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
But that wasn't the problem. It's just a poorly constructed movie.
Even if it didn't have Rabid as the template or something like that to compare it with, it still wouldn't be a good movie.
Yeah. So here's how they changed the story. So Rose, played by Laura Vandervoort, is a quiet, awkward woman who works in the fashion trying to be a designer. An accident mangles her face and she gets an experimental stem cell treatment done that makes her and everyone she comes in contact with rabid. And alright, it started out with a decent scene. It begins with a nice little fake out, then the Rabid logo comes up. And you're like, wait, they get to her workplace, it seems completely fake. And I wonder, is that intentional? And then there's these blemishes all over her face, and the people around her seem to have blemishes too. Is that intentional? And then is this ugly orange-green color correction intentional? I was confused from the first scene.
It's aesthetically very unpleasing to look at, and her boss character is a strange character too. He's into Schadenfreude, which is, the suffering of others, in his line of clothing. She works for a fashion designer. His line of clothing is supposed to be dangerous and risque.
And he talks like this, and he's very cliche.
It's very pompous and a cliche of a character, and this is another one where I was like, I don't even think this is the actor's fault either. You could tell this is the direction that he was pushed in. He was asked to be this cliche. He was asked to be this over the top. He was given those stupid fucking lines. I was really, really looking forward to this. I thought the Soska Sisters would be, a perfect option to tackle if anybody could make a David Cronenberg remake a David Cronenberg film, it was the Soska Sisters in my mind, and boy was I ever so wrong about that.
The part that where it really started going south for me, like all right, her boss is a caricature, fine.
Okay.
The doctor she goes to is a caricature, fine. Mm-hmm. But at least it had the badass makeup, the face being mangled and all that.
Really good makeup. I have to give props to the effects team on this one, though.
But where it really goes south, remember when it shows these hot club girls come up to get into this swank fancy club that Rose is trying to get into?
Yeah.
The hot club girls, the bouncer just lets them right in. Mm-hmm. But with her, he has to search through the list to find her name before he lets her in. And I knew at that moment, I said, she's going to come back later and she's going to be all rabid and it's going to be a glow up. And then he's going to let her right in. I'll be damned if a few minutes later she became rabid and she was all glowed up now since she's a monster. and he lets her right in, and she seems confused by that. I was like, come on, it was so contrived.
Yeah, there isn't really much to latch onto this aside from a few of the good gore effects, because most of this was just an eye roll.
The makeup job was excellent when her face was mangled, and the anticipation building for when the accident was going to happen was pretty cool, until it started completely falling apart.
There's some
And then-
moments in here.
And then the Soska sisters are in the bathroom, and they start talking shit about the girl while she's in the stall. Total high school bullshit.
It almost reminded me of The Fanatic when
Yeah.
the high school bullshit where the cop is acting like the school principal, busting up the bullies, picking on John Travolta, except these are all grown-ass men and adults. This gives off the same air. There's a lot of tributes to David Cronenberg movies that I didn't realize until you pointed them out to me, but there's a little bit of The Brood thrown in there. There's a little bit of Crash. There's a little bit of everything thrown in, and none of it works. I don't think they got what makes... They didn't get to what makes Cronenberg's horrific body horror imagery so effective in the way that it gets under our skin. They didn't tap into that at all.
Yeah.
Like, at all.
Well, they would go, oh, it's going to be a dramatic and personal story about this girl, Rose. Oh, no, it's going to be a typical infected film. And that randomly switches back and forth. And it randomly switches just to get to the next story beat. And none of it feels organic. And
Bad decision after bad decision. You had to look and just almost shaking your head at some of this stuff.
what about the girl's surgery? They had like Dead Ringers outfits on. Like
Yeah.
a cult. The surgery completely played like a cult. Nobody was going to buy into that bullshit.
When I saw the surgery scene, I had forgotten about it until this moment, but when I saw the surgery scene, my first thought was like, nobody's ever gonna fucking get in a surgery room where they look like they're dressed like characters and eyes wide shut.
Shut up.
She finishes the procedure, walks straight to the pool acting sexy, and bites someone. And then starts saying, I feel great, I feel strong. Not thinking twice about maybe this is strange.
This was definitely one of the major letdowns of 2019 horror. I don't know what I expected, but at the very least, I thought this was going to be really fun. I thought it was going to be really gory, really trashy, really nasty. I thought the Soska sisters had something up their sleeves with this movie, and they didn't.
What about all the moments where it says, wait, was it a dream? It happened so many times I just yelled out, fuck you.
Shut your mouth or I'll rip your lips off.
I'm not even going to ruin the ending because it's not even worth ruining. But the motivations behind the doctor and what he was doing are so stupid that you just fucking almost really? Like, who thought that was a good idea to put this in the script? And then it ends with the little Brood moment. You can tell that's like a total Brood tribute. And to be fair, the creature they created was cool, the way that it looked and the design of it. But by that time, you don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah. And at one point it even turns into Raw. Like, there was a section of it where everything played out exactly the way it did in the movie Raw a couple years ago. But Raw was handled so much better. It was a similar story about a girl becoming rabid and having a taste for meat. But this was just so convoluted.
It was better in pretty much every single way.
Yeah, and then her face magically transforms overnight. Like, it's no longer mangled. It's completely gone now. Now she's even more beautiful than she was before. She shows her foster sister, and she's only just slightly surprised. She's not even shocked that there was a complete overnight transformation.
Go ahead if you're curious, or if you really are committed to the Soska sisters, or you really, really need your body horror fix. But I don't know. This is not a film that I would recommend to much of anyone, really.
Shut up.
The fashion show was pretty cool because it happened when the outbreak was already happening.
It was okay.
But the climax, there was, like you said, some cool mutated monsters in the climax, but the circumstances surrounding them were dumb.
And it made it hard to care or get excited. Yeah.
And then they had that Brood type scene, and then the anticlimactic ending that kept getting worse up to the last frame.
Yeah.
So that's everything good and bad that I found on this, and as you can see, I found much more bad in it. And believe me, one of the reasons I got so triggered by this movie is I was so disappointed. Yeah, believe me, that was painful to give that scathing review.
Listen to this podcast, or I'll stab your eardrums with an ice pick.
We also watched a cult horror movie from 1977 that comes from Japan, It's called House.
Now this I liked.
This is directed by Nobuhiko Obayashi. I have been wanting to check this movie out for a while. I heard a lot of things about it. I'm a big fan of surrealism and horror. And when I heard that this was batshit surreal and bonkers horror movie, I was like, sounds like something right up my alley.
Yeah.
And holy shit, it was a lot fucking weirder than I expected to be. This is one of the most gloriously insane, absolutely ridiculous, over-the-top movies in the best possible way.
Well, the story starts off simple and sweet. It's a schoolgirl and 6 of her classmates travel to her aunt's house in the country that turns out to be haunted. Mm-hmm. But even though it's going through this silly little melodramatic setup showing the girl's home life and her school life,
it already is bizarre.
It's like all this weird editing, like weird picture-in-picture editing and painted backdrops and cheesy bubblegum pop songs. And even when she tells her family story, it's that silent film. It's a silent film format.
And you notice that it's framed, the frame, like kind of like The Lighthouse, like it's used to evoke a different era of filmmaking, the way that it's done. I've seen some pretty creative editing in films. This is some of the trippiest, hardest to comprehend, unfathomable editing I've ever seen. As somebody who spent hours behind editing and who dedicates a lot of time to that, I was watching this and trying to study what it is the editor on this film did. Editing style is unlike anything I'd ever seen. You would see like a vignetted picture in the middle of the frame of something, something's going on in the background, but something's drawing you to the middle of the frame, and before you know it, that vignette has kind of bleeded out, and it's blended with the rest of the picture, and you don't know when that happened.
Yeah.
You're not sure, like, it's like a trick on the eye. I don't know how to explain it. And the editing is so weird in the way that it vignettes everything, the way that it moves like the camera back and forth, and it's not the camera, it's the editing style that makes the camera seem like it's moving back and forth. It looks like the image opens up like a door and goes on to another scene. Some of the editing is so fast where you see incomprehensible editing in between, where I had to keep like looking and staring hard. It's like, what the fuck did I just watch happen right now? And I loved every minute of it. I think this is a very unique film, and I think it's going to turn a lot of people off. It's definitely not for everybody, but this is like the type of horror film when you just want to watch something gloriously batshit insane. Don't watch this expecting to be scared or horrified by it, because it's not scary at all, in my opinion. It's a blast. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Dario Argento and Sam Raimi. It's colorful almost in the way that Dario Argento is. It's
more absurd, though.
But more absurd. And then energetic the way that Sam Raimi is, but even more absurd. So imagine those two directors' styles mashed together on speed, and you might kind of get an idea of what you're getting at, but even then, that doesn't fully explain what's going on here. This is very cheap. A lot of the effects are so crude, but after a certain point in the movie, there's like this onslaught of imagery that is cheap, crude, but it's so committed to it, and it's so energetic, and it's so dedicated to its vision. It starts to take on a weird type of, I don't know, believability, where the surreal elements seem to be like a genuine nightmare after a while. As ridiculous as some of the stuff was, I couldn't take my eyes off of it. The last part of the movie I watched with like a fucking grin on my face, a grin from ear to ear. You see a piano eat somebody alive, a piano cannibalism. The effects are so cheap, but they're so cheap in a way that makes them feel bizarre and almost like otherworldly. Like, what the hell am I watching right now?
No matter how far it goes, it doesn't seem out of place in the movie, because it started out with that insane editing from the beginning, where it seemed like the editor used every trick that was available to him at that time.
Yes.
Every single one. Every wipe, every transition.
The editor on this film pulled out all the fucking stops for this movie. You could tell that they were dedicated, and a lot of its the real aesthetic and its energy comes directly from the editing. Editing is always an important process, but I've seen few movies where the editing is crucial to its aesthetic and crucial to the energy. Every frame of this movie is bursting with fucking unbridled creativity, non-stop imagination, so many aesthetic creative flourishes that the eye cannot comprehend and take everything in that's going on in one viewing. You'd have to watch this 4 or 5 times to really get to see everything that is going on in this movie. Its creativity is unbounded. And like you said earlier, Any other film that got this batshit or ridiculous at the end might be stupid, but because the movie starts off in a certain way and sort of hypnotizes you into a certain state of mind, it all seems believable for the world that it's in.
Yeah.
This is like what we were talking about earlier. As long as a movie can commit to its own internal logic, even if it doesn't resemble reality, I can deal with it. And this movie does commit very much to its style and its own universe and internal logic. So it becomes believable that these events are happening because the world is shown from the outset to be off, almost like a completely different universe this movie takes place in.
And as crazy and insane as it was, it really kicked into high gear with the appearance of Blanche the cat.
Oh my god. I've never seen a cat steal.
I
love so much.
Every time I seen that cat, it stole the show, and then when it turned into the little demon cat that you see on the poster, it was even more awesome.
Shut your mouth, or I'll skin your cat and f*** it.
The cat meowing. It's meowing a song while it's dancing back and forth.
And that's also another editing trick, too.
Yeah.
A lot of it is the editing.
So
the visuals and the
dude.
aesthetics. There's a lot of great colors in this movie. The color scheme. There's a vaguely satirical soap opera vibe that it takes on at times. Almost reminded me a little bit of like a Japanese Twin Peaks in certain areas. And this has, if you've seen the poster, it's an animated poster of a cat that looks goofy and kind of rabid and wild. And it's a funny poster. If you watch the movie, the poster's going to be even cooler when it's over. When you look at the poster, you're going to laugh. So that's, once you get it in context.
That's essentially Demon Blanche that you see on the cover. And then when Demon Blanche is in the water and they're like floating around on top of the water, and you can kind of see it staring at you, and you kind of not, and the water rises and falls. It was both hilarious and frightening as hell at the same time. I love that part. And then you have things like a head floating around and biting someone's ass. And then, like you said, piano eating a girl. And then stop motion chaos and severed fingers playing the piano. Light hanging from the ceiling eats one of the girls. There's limbs flying around everywhere. It's like a demented play. Almost.
It is completely demented and batch. And that's another thing about it is it's hard to it throws after a certain point, it throws so much information at your eyeballs that you can't capture it all. Yeah. Like you end up like reeling from the pure insanity that you're watching unfold. You're like, as soon as you're gobsmacked by one moment, 3 other moments that are equally as gobsmacking have passed you by. You've had no time to comprehend them, and the movie is already throwing something else at you. So I think this would be a good movie for people with short attention spans, or people who get bored easy, or who have ADD, because the movie never stops, and it seems like it's shifting into something different at any point in time. Yeah. And it seems like the filmmaker had a blast making this movie. This is just Japanese surreal experimental pop art horror with a very infectious and giddy spirit.
Yeah, it seems crazy and disjointed, but it's fully committed to whatever it is. Pop ballads in awkward places, the cut and paste craziness seems somehow focused in a really weird way.
And did you notice that the music would go in and out at odd moments? Yeah. Almost like the composer forgot what was going on himself and had to catch up, or sometimes it would be a few seconds behind. Or with the ant character, when they're talking, she's talking, and then the music keeps, some sappy music's playing, and then it stops at an odd time, and then it starts up again. And these things might seem like mistakes in another film, but it's obviously intentional to make you feel disoriented and to make you feel like you're watching something not of this world. And this movie doesn't play by any known rules of filmmaking that I've ever seen. It seems like to take all the rules of what traditional filmmaking is, breaks them apart and rearranges it in exciting new ways, and makes unbridled chaos seem extremely focused, extremely clear. It's all of a very complete vision. Everything is of a piece. As absurd as it all is, this is a director who he's still alive, has a fucking wild ass imagination and the aptitude to bring his imagination to life on screen. A lot of people have great imaginations. Few people can illustrate their imagination in a film the way that this filmmaker did. So I was just impressed by it from top to bottom.
Well, the essence of filmmaking is creating an illusion.
Yes.
And this is just all a fever dream illusion. Just everything's an illusion, from the sky to the characters to the house.
And you notice that all of the backgrounds sometimes look patently fake.
Yeah.
Like it's obvious that they're fake, and they're almost like drawing attention to the fact that they're fake or that they're not real. But the movie takes on a whole unreal quality while you're watching it.
And I've never seen anything quite like that.
So it's a hard movie to describe in terms of its plot, because the plot is besides the point.
Yeah.
It's about a haunted house at its core, and
the aunt that owns the house is really cool, and then she runs around before all the craziness starts. She runs around talking to every inanimate object in the house, and that kind of plays into how everything happens, because the
whole house is
takes
alive.
on a life of its own. Yeah, hilarious, loved it.
Yeah, me too. So this was a good way to get the taste out of my mouth of Rabid.
Yeah, so we watched one that was so bad it's bad, and then so bad it's good.
Yes, but this is one of those weird ones where it's so I could see it falling into the so bad it's good category, because some of it's so obviously bizarre and hokey. But I tend to resist that with this film only a little bit, because it's very obvious. Unlike most so bad it's good movies, the director intended it to be this way. This is what he was going for.
Which is why it got the honor of getting the Criterion treatment.
Yes. Oh yeah, and it is on Criterion, because hokey or not, ridiculous, over the top as it is undeniably a work of art.
Yeah, and this, I can't believe I waited so long to see this. Thank you for renting it and bringing it to my attention. I've
Welcome.
been meaning to watch it for a while. I'm glad I finally did. It's been too long. I should have watched it a long time ago. This is going in my collection as soon as I can, the Criterion.
Yes. And I recommend this to a lot of, if you're a horror fan who has a taste for the more experimental, more avant-garde stuff, more bizarre, if you're a fan of just batshit crazy movies, batshit crazy cinema, this is for you. This is most definitely for you.
Yeah,
Keep an open mind when you watch it, though.
Yeah.
This is not...
I have to say one thing. The character, Mac, they kept calling her fat. She wasn't fat.
Oh, no. I actually think that has to do with Japanese cultural standards in the 1970s, and it did occur to me while I was watching. I was like, if that's what fat is considered in that country, that's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
I was like, that's wrong.
Yeah. She just had a normal little girl body.
She just looked like a normal little girl to me, and they kept calling her fat, her stomach, and you can't stop eating. You eating everything. It's like, Jesus, this is cruel.
I know.
This girl isn't even big. Like, what the hell?
Man.
Or it could be part of the humor. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
You never know in this movie, huh?
It's hard to say.
You have to think that it's all on purpose, because so much of it is obviously on purpose. So it has to all be, right?
Yeah.
So I had a blast with that one.
So did I. And those are the movies that we watched this week.
Yeah, so come back next week, and we will be doing our top 10 horror films of 2019, finally.
Yes.
We got a couple we've been sleeping on, a couple blind spots we have to take care of before we do that, or we would have done it already. So once we take care of those, we're going to come back next week and give you a top 10. Check out our page at Pickles Horror Show on Instagram and Facebook.com/Pickles Horror Show for all the information on my feature film coming out this year.
Pay Up.
Yep, Pay Up, and then Horror Show becoming available on VOD. So all that you'll be able to find out on our pages.
Until next week, folks,
Happy
happy horror.